Hey
Hey
everyone,
everyone,
it's
it's
Grant
Grant
Winsauer,
Winsauer,
and
and
I
I
have my
have
friend
my friend
Eric here
Eric
with
here with
me
me
today
today
to do
to
this
this
podcast.
podcast.
Why don't you
Why don't you
introduce
introduce
yourself,
yourself,
Eric,
Eric,
and
and
tell us
tell us
what
what
made you become a
made you
Bears
become a
fan?
Bears fan?
I'm Eric. I just graduated from the U of I. I studied in journalism. Was a journalist within the Daily Illini, and I've covered a plethora of sports, but my heart's always been within football. I've been a Bears fan my entire life. It's been I was born into this, but it really wasn't until about 2010 when they made that NFC Championship run that I was like, oh, this is something that I really need to kind of focus on. And it wasn't even until high school, even then, back in I believe 17, right around when we drafted Mitch, after I had heard the news, we had gotten rid of Cutler and signed Mike Glennon. I was upset, but then saw Mitch Trubisky was going to be our future quarterback, and then I had hope, which looking back on hindsight's 2020. Of course, he wasn't that guy, but really the players that I was a big fan of growing up, Cutler, Forte, Urlacher, and it was right around like that 2010 NFC Championship one that made me like cemented really my fandom.
I think that's a
I think
good
that's a
time
good
period.
time period.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a great
so
one.
today,
So today,
so today we're going
so
to talk
today we're going to
about
talk about
OTAs. We're going to
OTAs.
talk
We're going to
about
talk about
Joe
Joe
Thuney's extension. I
Thuney's
did a
extension.
video
I did a
earlier this
video
week
earlier
on it,
this
but
week
I
on
didn't
it, but I didn't
get anyone else's
get anyone
opinion.
else's opinion.
So I
So
want to get your
I want
opinion
to
on
get your
it.
opinion on it.
And then we're
And
going to talk
then we're going to
about
talk about
who's
who's
your favorite
your favorite
draft pick from this
draft pick
class,
from
who's
this
your least
class, who's your
favorite,
least
who's
favorite,
your
who's your
most
most
underrated. And
underrated,
then
and then
our final topic will
final topic
be
will
who
be
we
who
think
we
is
think
going to
is gonna
benefit the most
benefit the
from
most
having
from
Ben
having Ben
Johnson as
Johnson as
head coach.
head coach.
Um, so let's
So
start with
let's start
Joe
with
Thuney's
Joe Thuney's
extension.
extension.
That happened
That
on
happened on
Tuesday
Tuesday
morning,
morning,
and he
and he
is locked
is
in for
locked in
3 years,
3 years,
$51 million.
$51 million.
He has
He has
he has
this
1 year
he has
left on his
1 year
current
left on his
contract with the
current
well
contract with
that we inherited from the Chiefs,
that we inherited from the Chiefs,
and then
and then
he has a 2 year
he
extension
has
worth
a 2 year
$35
extension
million.
worth $35 million.
So, Eric, what are
So,
your thoughts on that?
Eric, what are your
And
thoughts on that? And
were you
um,
surprised
were
when
you
you saw
surprised
that
when you saw that
notification?
notification?
Surprised, no, because of the nature of how Ryan Poles works as a GM and the position he played back when during his playing days was at the line position. So he should have that experience of knowing what the position is worth. But I think the extension is a really good thing as it's going to give a consistency within the offensive line that within the last few seasons we haven't quite had because offensive line hasn't really been that great. Let's be completely honest. Under Williams and Fields, they didn't have the offensive line that they should have had, in my opinion. And also going forward, he's going to be one of the leaders alongside Don Wright, who is going to help be a leader for these young guys that we're going to get in the room going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love everything that you said.
Everything that you said. I mean,
He's going to be the true leader in this offensive line
offensive
now,
line
because
now, because
that's one thing
that's
that we've been
one thing
missing,
that we've
and
been missing, and
it also
it
brings
also brings
consistency,
consistency, which
we
we
desperately need. And
desperately need.
I
And
can't wait
I
to
can't wait
see
to see
what
what
um,
um,
Caleb Williams can do
Caleb
behind
Williams can
this
do
offensive
behind this
line,
offensive
because
line, because
this offensive
this
line
offensive line
should give
should
him
give him
plenty of time,
plenty of time,
but
but
the ones in the
the
past have
ones in the
not.
past have not.
So
So
This one is definitely going to help.
Yeah.
So OTAs ended yesterday. And I saw a few clips practice and um you know, players were getting coached really hard in practice, and that is a good thing because that is one thing that we definitely lacked in all of our previous coaches, and I'm really excited to see what this coaching or what this team looks like with pads on. But I think that the Caleb Jerome connection is going to be really special because of the fact that he's now going to be, or Jerome is now going to be the wide receiver two in the offense, and he's not going to be fighting targets with Caleb or Keenan Allen. But have you seen any clips from Twitter on OTA practice or anything?
I saw one. Yeah, I just saw one. It was it was a tweet from the Bears themselves that said, "We missed this duo," and it was a pass to Caleb Jerome. But that was just about it.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't a lot because OTAs. There's only a certain amount of days that's open to the media. Sadly, and I think the only other clip that I saw was a pass from Caleb to DJ, which I can't wait to see again. When the when the season comes around. Like one thing that is crazy is I love this coaching staff because they're bringing accountability and are actually stopping practice if a player does something wrong. OTA practice. Usually, I would say it's okay to let them go in OTA practice. Get on players if they do that in training camp. But this shows that if or that Ben Johnson and staff want to win because the best coaches that last long coach you hard, want you to do things right. Think of Bill Belichick, Reed, John Payton, guys like that. Like I really think that this is going to be a great coaching staff for this team, and I can't wait to see the team in the future. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think, especially if you're a first-year coach, like a head coach like Ben Johnson is, you have to walk that fine line of being a strict head coach and also knowing when to how to get players locked in. And I've seen that so far within the OTAs from what I'm hearing coming out. Nobody's been like, "Oh, this guy's a tool. They're checked out," so and so on. And if that's going to be the case, then I personally wouldn't want them on the team if any of those reports come out. But I so far I've seen everybody's been locked in. So within a coaching staff like this, everybody needs to be locked in day one and buy into the system that Ben Johnson is currently selling to the team and the organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So the draft was about a month ago, and I've talked about my favorite, my favorite, my least favorite, and my most underrated draft for Bears draft. But I want to ask you what your this would be for those uh, players.
So I'm going to start off with my favorite pick on this. I'm going to go with the second round pick, Luther Burden III out of Mizzou. I really like this pick because it gives the Bears not only a good line of succession moving forward when eventually the Bears decide that, hey, DJ Moore's on his decline in the future of his career. We have Rome Odunze still. Rome can fit in nicely into that wide receiver one spot, kind of like what the Cowboys did with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb when they wanted to move on from Cooper, traded him to Cleveland, and then moved CeeDee Lamb into that one spot. I think Burden can work out. He's a very fast, explosive player, very shifty with the ball in his hands. And he slots in nice as a wide receiver 3, especially as a second-round pick, because, the wide receiver 3 last year was Rome Odunze, and he was a younger kind of dude. With Rome now taking that next step into his sophomore season and us letting Keenan Allen walk, who – I'm going to be honest, was fighting for receptions between Rome and DJ Moore. It was nice to have a guy like that last year, but getting younger with that wide receiver 3 position where you don't have that much pressure on you to succeed immediately because you're going to be like the third look in your read for the quarterback's read is really good. And especially with a coach like Ben Johnson, and I'll get into this more later on, with how I feel with Ben Johnson with the wide receivers. It's going to be really nice to see him, develop, especially specifically in his rookie year, and then as it continues moving forward under, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and then if maybe in the future, Rome Odunze, then him as the wide receiver too. For my least favorite pick, I'm going to kind of go with the entirety of the media on this, but I am going with Ruben Hippolyte out of Maryland. He was a 4th-round pick, and the only reason I don't like the pick is just because of where we got him at. It was more of a situational thing with where we selected him at. He was ranked 35th among all defensive players in the Big Ten with a career high of 66 tackles. And it's fine while also being the leader of Maryland's defense, but we could have definitely got him in a lot later of a pick. Or even as a top undrafted free agent coming out of the draft. Looking more into it, I think he'll be fine. The Bears saw something in him at the pro day that they thought, hey, we can take him at the 4th round. And specifically a lot of these picks throughout, if you look all across the draft board, a lot of these picks are Bears playing backup to whoever they wanted originally. So they would it wasn't like their first option. You could see that within even the Loveland pick. It's not a pretty pick, but it was a need. Luther Burden, not a pretty pick, also a need. But they're literally playing catch up the entire time. I bet the Bears, who they really wanted to begin with, was GNT, but he was going at the Raiders regardless. So they were just playing second option and second fiddle to every single one. And it really put our draft into okay, then who's our next best scenario, next best option kind of guy? I'm not going to try to say Hippolyte was that, but I'm going to say that, hey, they felt he was at his pro day at this level. And now, underrated, I'm really high on him, but I'm going to go with Monungai out of Rutgers. I am super high on him coming out of this draft. He has a lot of aspects that I think Ben Johnson really likes. He's not very big, and he has some weight to him, and he's not tall, but he's more outweighted. He's a kind of guy that is going to run through the tackles. I want to look back at what David Montgomery did for the Lions last year. Now, I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm comparing David Montgomery to a 7th-round pick. But Montgomery wasn't I'm going to get you a lot of yardage kind of guy. He was more of hey, I'm going to be at a 3rd and short goal line situation. I'm going to need you to get a couple yards. Well, he's going to be that kind of dude that runs through the tackles and gets you those 2 yards, especially in those types of situations. And he's not going to be a running back 1 or even a 2. That's going to be DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. Maybe he can try to compete for some snaps over Roschon, But I think respectively in this area, he's not going to have that pressure coming. He's going to have a little bit more pressure as a 7th-round pick, but he's not going to have the, hey, I'm going to need to be in day one. I can come in here, learn and develop under these two veteran guys. And when I get my name called upon, I'm going to just put my head down and then run to the tackle. And a very good example of this that I saw with Monunga when I was watching him last season was his game against Illinois last year. Going against a very good defensive line and was basically running all over them. He had 28 carries for 122 yards. He didn't get a touchdown in that game because when they were in those short goal line situations, they ended up giving it to their quarterback. I think it was some long name that I don't really remember, but he played for Minnesota last year, a couple years ago when Illinois had that walk-off touchdown with them to Isaiah Williams. But I think a really good game with Monungai to look at, and what I'm talking about is that Illinois game specifically.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I literally agree with every one of your choices. I mean, because it was that the Bears wanted Henderson from Ohio State, but he went to the Patriots before, and they did call about trade up, but they only offered 7th-round draft pick at 39. That's not really a good. That's not a fair flip. You know.
Yep.
But I mean, the thing that is going to be so underrated about Monungai is who he has to coach him. He has Eric Bieniemy as his position coach, and that dude is a running back mastermind. I mean, he turned what's his name? Isaiah Pacheco, another 7th round from Rutgers, into a starter for the Kansas City Chiefs. And before that, he coached Peterson, Reese Jones, and one other name that I got. But I mean, this dude is gonna turn into an awesome player because of his coach. And Luther Burden, I agree here. Was probably the second option because they wanted a running back. You did want to take a guy like Caleb Johnson that early because he was probably a third round pick, which was where he went. But and then I mean, hype light, you probably could have gotten him for undrafted. So I agree with you. Before we get into our last topic, I remind everyone to like, subscribe, and share so we can grow and reach more people in the future. And then our last topic, who do you think is going to benefit the most from having Ben Johnson as our head? And I mean, I kind of said something that was a little unexpected, but I think the whole organization has benefited from him because when you have a successful offensive mind that is proven, you are gonna bring in successful coaches with you, obviously with staff. And then you schedule. They have five prime games this year. None of them are on Thursday. But I mean, I don't think that we've had a 5 prime games in the last like 3 or 4 years. I don't know if you know that, but I would guess. And then But if I had, since I did say players, I have two players on offense and two players on defense that I think are going to benefit from this the most. I'm not going to say Caleb Williams because it's kind of obvious, or it should be obvious. So my two offensive players are Roma Dunze and DeAndre Swift. Dunze definitely helps him to be the wide receiver too. So he's going to get an uptick in targets, yard. But also, Ben Johnson is really impressed with it. He said that he thinks that Rome is like a season pro in the field and off the field and all that stuff, and he's very impressed with that. And then for my other offensive player that I think is gonna benefit from this is actually DeAndre Swift, because when you look at the offensive line investments that and in Joni, and Dahlman, that's going to be a very strong year. And Swift with Eagles before there, and they had one of the strong interiors. And I'm not saying that our is along the lines of the Eagles besides Chiefs maybe, but it should be a top 10 offensive line. So why don't you go into your two offensive players, Eric, and then we'll go after.
So my first offensive player that I chose was DJ Moore. I think if you look at what he's been able to do in the systems with Risk coaching in QB play, he's been a clear-cut wide receiver one at every point of his career. And he's still been a stud with like bad coaching on the Eberflus and then some pretty poor quarterback play. And one of the things that people think about Ben Johnson, and I said that I'd get back into this earlier in the show, was that Ben Johnson, a lot of people say, is a run-first guy, which isn't wrong. And it's very true that his thrived system is a two running back system. But before he became the offensive coordinator, he was actually the passing games coordinator in Detroit and was able to get Amon-Ra St. Brown 1,000 yards every single season, except one, while he's been in Detroit. He's very good and underrated in this front, and especially with Caleb Williams, who I think is a more talented player than Jared Goff, which shouldn't really be that hot take of a say. Like Jared Goff's a more seasoned vet, but Caleb Williams, I think, has a higher ceiling within his own talent and athletic ability. And he's made Jared Goff look like their guy, like for the future and going forward. Another guy I want to say is Cole Kmet, because another thing that helps in Ben Johnson's system for offense is also having a two tight end front. Loveland, of course, was their pick this year, and a lot of question marks around Kmet has been thrown. But I think having, Kmet, who's a very capable and proven tight end within the system, like Ben Johnson's, will help immensely for his career. Now, I don't know if he continues it and finishes out in Chicago, whereas because we have Loveland, and maybe we look in the future to hey, we have Loveland in a point where he can be our tight end number one, but it can learn under Cole Kmet right now, who will himself thrive within this area. Now, the other the defensive players that you said.
I didn't say any yet.
You didn't say any yet? Okay.
You can go into yours first.
Okay. I'm going to go with – we only have one here, and I think it's going to be Tyreek Stevenson. With Tyreek Stevenson, yes.
Interesting.
Because it's mostly about being held accountability. What tipped me off that the locker room last season was lost was the Commanders game when Tyreek Stevenson was drawing out the crowd and he was not paying attention on that Hail Mary play. And later on, there was zero accountability taken from the coaching staff about his actions on the field, and there was hardly any punishment given out. I think with Tyreek Stevenson playing under Ben Johnson's system with a Dennis Allen, where accountability is going to be key, and him locking in day one will be what will really help the secondary. And if he isn't locked in, well, then that's fine. We'll find another cornerback, and within the draft next season, it's going to sound like, hey, I'm punting away our secondary, but it's going to start with Stevenson locking in first, and then it's going to be a wave of effect going across that defense of like, hey, if we can get this guy locked in, then we're doing something right here.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you. I definitely think the coaching staff is going to help with his accountability. So for me, one of my choices for defense is Jalen Johnson, because I mean Jalen Johnson is already a star player, but Dennis Allen's system always has his number one corner shadowing the number one opposing. And I'm pretty sure that he still did that in the majority of the last year. But Dennis Allen's system is going to be 100% better than Matty system. So that's my first for standout. My second choice is actually Von Dexter, because he's really bulked up this season, and I've seen him in the weight room. He looks great, and not only does he have Andrew Billings, but he also gets to learn from Grady Jarrett, who is a 10-year vet, who was arguably the best player on the Falcons defense last year. Even though he struggled a little bit. And it's funny. People were saying at the end of business we got Atlanta's best offensive lineman and Atlanta's best defensive lineman. And I can agree with that same. But also what I like what you said about how Ben Johnson's system, running back system, because what people don't understand is when you use one to highlight your offense, opens up the passing ability. And one of the other things that I really like about Ben Johnson is he schemes his players open. I don't think that I ever saw Ian Waldron do that last year. It was always scramble and find a place. It was never like you are open unless it was a busted coverage. But I think that's going to be our podcast today. I want to thank Eric on today. Thanks for filling in today, and I had a blast with you.
Yeah, it was fun.
And we'll definitely have to do this again in the future.
Yeah.
Everyone, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, so we can grow and reach a bigger audience. And have the best Bears news possible. So see you guys next week. And have a good week.